My boyfriend loved to draw, but I had never seen him sketch me. Eric said he didn't like drawing portraits. Yet on Victoria's birthday, I saw him softly, attentively pencil out a girl raising a crown above her head. 6 years after we broke up, the wedding gift from my childhood sweetheart was entered into an art competition. Sitting among the judges was none other than Eric. His hand clenched the mic in a tremble, while the man holding me by the waist chuckled casually. Regardless of the final score, I sincerely invite all judges to witness our love, tomorrow at noon, at our wedding ceremony. Mr. Eric, will you be attending? Chapter 01. Eric was a brilliant artist. Yet in the 4 years we dated, he never once drew my face. No matter how much I teased or begged, he always refused to put me on paper. I remember, it was a Friday, when Victoria invited Marco to her birthday party. Her intentions were obvious. I passed by with my books, giggling, only to be stopped by Marco's cold glare and a tug at my collar. Are you going to her party? Victoria blinked. Marco and Elena are close? Childhood neighbors. How could we not be? I still remembered every time Marco got spanked as a kid. But in college, Marco became too good-looking for his own good, and I got stuck delivering love letters for years. Eventually, I wore him down and convinced him to pretend we weren't close, just to avoid the chaos. Seeing Victoria, clearly smitten, I rushed to distance myself. Senior. Not close at all. We barely met in electives. Right, Marco? Marco didn't deny it. He just shoved his hands in his pockets and stared at me coldly, like I had betrayed him by not shielding him from another admirer. Later that night, I laughed about it with Eric over dinner. He was picking cilantro out of my bowl when he froze at the mention of Victoria. He looked up, voice low. If Victoria really confesses to Marco, do you want to be there to see it? Thinking he was jealous, I grinned. Sure, let's go. I want to see how Marco's first girlfriend conquers him. Eric lowered his eyes and gave a soft mem. After a pause, he added, I'll pick you up tonight. We'll go together. I teased him for being petty, but I didn't realize, that day, for the first time ever, there was cilantro left in my bowl. Chapter 02. At the birthday party that evening, I kept scratching my neck in discomfort. Eric, meanwhile, was chatting happily at the karaoke with some classmates he'd just run into. Marco walked over with a plate of fruit, sat beside me, and glanced at my neck. Having an allergic reaction? Did you take your meds? I shook my head. No time. I had classes all afternoon, and I came here straight after. The moment class ended, Eric had shown up outside my door right on time, dragging me straight to the party before I could even mention I'd left my antihistamines at home. I taught him how to pick out cilantro for you. Why is he still slacking? Marco's voice held a rare note of irritation as he gently brushed his thumb along my neck. The warmth of that brief touch stunned me. I quickly turned away, back facing him. He chuckled behind me. Uncomfortable? You've forgotten your big brother now that you've got a boyfriend? So tense, like I'm contagious. I kicked him lightly in retaliation. Just then, Victoria walked in, dressed like a proper birthday princess in a short flouncy dress that showed off her long, pale legs. Everyone turned to look, catcalls erupting. Even Eric's eyes paused on her face. Victoria's gaze floated past the crowd and curved into a sweet crescent moon smile as she called, Marco, you came. I quickly stood up to give her my seat and didn't catch whatever Marco muttered in reply. People began crowding around Marco and Victoria. As I tried to slip past the crowd, I overheard some gossip. Hey, isn't that Eric? Wasn't he the one who confessed to Victoria back then? What's he doing here? He came as someone's boyfriend, right? Bet he heard Victoria's gonna confess to Marco and wanted to see it for himself. Wow, his girlfriend really has range. She's okay with this? The party continued, and soon the room was caught up in a game of truth or dare. Those stray words buzzed in my head like flies. I scanned the room. Eric was no longer in sight. Rounds passed, and then it was finally Victoria's turn to ask Marco a question. Blushing furiously, she looked at him and asked, Is there someone here that you like? The crowd roared with excitement. Marco leaned back, his gaze dark and unreadable, and nodded slowly. Victoria's face went crimson. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. I have something to tell you. The music stopped. Everyone held their breath, waiting for her confession, and I Couldn't take it anymore. I bolted from the room. Chapter 03. At the end of the hallway. By the window. Eric was quietly sketching under the soft night light, pencil in hand, his expression gentle and focused. That back, one I had embraced countless times, suddenly felt so unfamiliar. I had a crush on Eric all through high school. For 2 full years. That quiet boy always sitting by the window, drawing away with a strikingly handsome face. I used to fake passing by his class, just to catch a glimpse of him immersed in his sketchbook. Later, we finally started talking, and once I fell for him, I made it obvious. He liked art, so I bought him an expensive set of acrylic paints as a gift for Chishi Festival. He forgot his umbrella on rainy days. I just happened to show up beside him, heading back to class. I have an umbrella. Let's walk together. That umbrella? It stayed open between us for 3 whole years, but I still waited, always waiting for Eric to say the words, "I like you." In the end, it was Marco who couldn't stand it anymore. He pulled Eric in front of me and bluntly tore down the wall I was too afraid to breach. "Hey, do you like Elena or not? She's not your damn butler. If you don't like her, just say it and let her go." I stood behind Marco, legs trembling, terrified Eric would be angry and walk away. But instead, he didn't hesitate. With a trembling voice, he said, "I do. I like her. Of course I do." That day, we became a couple, all the way through junior year of college. Our love was sweet as honey. I used to think, "Elena, how lucky you are. The boy you adored from afar is now your boyfriend." Eric's possessiveness, his rare warmth, he showed it only to me. But tonight, for the first time, I realized the deepest secret in Eric's heart was never me. I stepped closer, heart in my throat. The sketch on the paper showed a girl, a princess dress, heels, a raised crown. Eric's pencil moved quickly, finishing the face in a few confident strokes. I held my breath. The crescent eyes sparkled with a radiant smile under the moonlight. There was no mistaking it. He was drawing Victoria. Chapter 04. I can't quite remember how I felt in that moment. What I do remember is a night, long ago, back when I got upset with Eric because he refused to draw a portrait of me. He immediately set his pencil down and hugged me, coaxing softly, "Elena, I don't like drawing portraits. Doing it half-heartedly feels disrespectful to the person, but doing it properly takes too much effort. Cut me some slack, okay?" He smiled and looked at me without blinking. "Come on, let it go. I'll make it up to you." The boy's face shimmered under the light, delicate and dazzling. I got so nervous I couldn't speak. He leaned in and gave me a light kiss on the cheek, then chuckled softly into my ear. I couldn't help laughing while dodging slightly. "Why are you more clingy than me? Our roles are all mixed up." Eric wrapped his arm around the back of my neck, stopping me from pulling away. His tone sweet but unmistakably possessive. "What's wrong with being clingy with my girlfriend? Elena, come closer. Don't hide from me." In that split second, all those sweet memories came flooding back, only to shatter into sharp, cruel pieces that carved out chunks of my heart. I snatched the sketch out of his hand, my voice shaking. "Eric, what do you mean you don't like drawing people? Then what's this? Who is this person you drew?" His pupils contracted. He stared at me, stunned. The pencil fell to the floor with a sharp clack. But he said nothing. "When did you confess to Victoria? You said you were coming here tonight to be with me. What was the truth? Eric, what is it between you and Victoria?" I sobbed, completely losing it, and collapsed into his arms. My tears soaked into his cold jacket. He gently patted my back. I thought he'd say something to comfort me, but instead, his voice came out rushed and panicked. "Elena, keep it down, don't make a scene out here. Wait till her party's over. I'll come back and we can talk." The moment my heart turned to ice, my arm ached sharply. Someone yanked me out of his arms with force. My wet lashes touched something warm. I was pulled into a much stronger embrace. Marco's hand covered my eyes, his chest rising in rage. "Hey, why are you crying like this? Huh?" I choked on a sob. The man's hand pressed tighter against my eyes, holding back the urge to punch someone. His voice dropped to a dangerous chill. "And who the hell are you, making her cry like this?" Chapter 05. I've always cared deeply about appearances. Even the tiniest stray thread on a beautiful dance dress would make me want to change into another. So now, after such an embarrassing scene, I was shaking, crying, my legs nearly useless. I gripped Marco's hand tightly, which still hovered protectively in front of my eyes. For the first time, I spoke to him in a near-broken voice. "Take me away. Don't let anyone see me. Just get me out of here." Marco's voice was tense but quiet. "Okay." Then he wrapped an arm around my shoulders, his jacket shielding me completely, through the silky inner lining of his white dress shirt. I could feel the heat of his body, warm and grounding, like it had the power to calm me. All the way to the car, I kept wiping away my tears against his chest, like an ostrich burying its head in denial. Once we were seated inside, I finally lifted my face and looked into the sun visor mirror. My makeup was completely ruined. "Stop crying. It's just a damn sketch." Marco had one hand on the steering wheel, frowning at me. "If you really want one that badly, I'll draw you myself. As many as you want." I closed my eyes tightly, trying to hold back the lump in my throat. My voice came out thick with emotion. "It's not the same. If it were just some random doodle Eric had drawn, I wouldn't have reacted this way. But we'd been together for so long. He said he couldn't draw me, yet he could draw another woman in vivid, loving detail? It just didn't make sense." My thoughts wandered. I turned to Marco and asked, "Victoria's had a crush on you for ages, right? Are you close to her? Do you know if anything ever happened between her and Eric?" Chapter 06. The night was deep and neon lights flashed around us. Marco's sharp profile, lit by the city's glow, looked colder than usual. "I don't know. We're not close." Then, after a pause, "Now you want to ask me stuff? Plenty of people have crushes on me. You think I've got time to investigate all of them? You think I've got nothing better to do?" His tone was biting. Marco rarely lost his temper with me these days, so the sudden cold edge in his voice made the fragile calm I'd just managed to rebuild crumble in an instant. "Why are you being so mean to me? Back in school, when that creep was stalking you, I was the one who handled it. Remember how many girls gossiped and badmouthed me? I didn't care. And now you." The moment I got emotional, I started dragging up old memories. But Marco didn't let me play victim. His tone stayed sharp and cutting. "Oh yeah, so when Eric confessed to you, who was the one who helped you behind the scenes? Who covered for you when you skipped class to spend Valentine's Day with him? Forget the past. Just now, back in that KTV room, you were crying like hell. Who did you call to come get you? And now you're throwing a tantrum at me? Acting like I'm the one who wronged you? Elena, all this messy back and forth between us, can you really say you've kept track of it all?" Marco almost never loses control like he did at the KTV. That kind of explosive rage? Not his style. Normally, he's the arrogant prince type who'd argue with logic, find your weak spot, and stab right into it. And that's exactly what he was doing now. I stared at him, dazed from the verbal barrage. When he parked and cut the engine, his face was still cold as ice. "Get out." So I did, storming off, head down, without looking back. Chapter 07. As soon as I stepped through the door, I saw my mom doing bedtime yoga in the living room. She looked up and frowned. I ran straight into my bedroom and locked the door behind me. Just as expected, the knocking started almost immediately, along with my mom's irritated voice. "Elena, didn't you just tell me you couldn't come home to practice because you were going to Victoria's birthday with Eric? What's going on now? You're crying like this. How are you supposed to compete in tomorrow's competition? I told you to break up with him a long time ago. You never listened. That guy's your jinx. Every time there's something important coming up, he picks a fight with you, like he's trying to ruin you." My hand clenched tightly around the doorknob, trembling. She wasn't wrong. On the surface, Eric and I looked like the perfect couple these past 4 years. But every fight, no matter how it started, always ended the same way. With me giving in, with him half coaxing, half kissing me into surrender. But it wasn't that I was easy to coax. It's just, I cared too much about pride. I stubbornly told myself, he's already come this far to make up with me. If I keep pushing, keep asking for the truth, I'd look desperate, like I had no dignity. But the truth is, once something cracks, it can never go back to perfect. Every time I came home after a fight, I couldn't help but obsess over his behavior. Did he stop liking me? Was he just tired of me? That pain would fester. And then, as if on cue, I'd have some huge dance competition coming up, or a piano exam, or finals. My mom kept close tabs on my academics, and she saw everything. Was this all just fate? A warning sign from the universe? I stayed quiet for a long time before finally speaking. Mom, I'm fine. No matter how badly we fight, it won't affect my dancing, because no matter what happens, on stage, I never mess up. Not once, not ever. Since I was a little girl, I've always done everything perfectly. Chapter 08. This competition was part of an evaluation hosted by a prestigious dance troupe from the UK. As long as I placed in the top 3, I would automatically qualify for a student exchange to an arts academy in Britain, under the name of the troupe, and upon graduation, a guaranteed position in the company. This troupe was the dream my mom never achieved in her youth. She poured all her unfulfilled ambitions into me from the moment I could walk. The lucky part? I love to dance. The unlucky part? I don't love the life she planned for me. Even back when she found out about me and Eric, she disapproved of his background and pressured me to break up with him. I stood my ground. That's why this competition? I never planned to give it my all. My plan was just to pass, barely. No mistakes. No brilliance. No spotlight. Just enough to keep my mother off my back. Especially now, with everything unresolved between Eric and me. I didn't want to go to Britain, but when I stepped into that arena, when I saw the fierce competitors from all over the country, dancing like their futures depended on it, something inside me caught fire. A desire to rise, to win, to defeat the best. I walked onto the stage, the spotlight blinding, the air electric. My costume shimmered in the sun like liquid silk, flawless and luminous. And I heard a voice at my ear. Elena, disappoint anyone you want, but not this. A voice from deep inside. My own voice. Chapter 09. The competition lasted only a day. Results came out that same night. By Monday morning, a banner was already hanging at the school gates. Huge letters congratulating me on being accepted into the UK's prestigious dance company. Word had it. The school was planning to feature my story in their next recruitment campaign. In our morning class, teachers and classmates gathered around, offering congratulations. I smiled, said thank you, and silenced my vibrating phone. Eric had been trying to reach me in every way possible. After I returned to the province, my mom handed my phone back. It was overflowing with missed calls and apology texts from him. At noon, I stepped out of the classroom. In the crowded hallway, I saw someone walking against the tide of students. Eric. When I was 17, I was always the one walking against the crowd, just to catch a glimpse of him through the classroom window. Now, he was the one walking toward me. He looked tired, but happy. He pulled me gently into his arms and said, "You're okay." I'm so relieved. He sighed and nuzzled my ear like nothing had ever happened, whispering, "My Elena is amazing. No matter what you do, you're always the best. I'm so proud of you." And in that moment, the breeze through my hair was gentle and warm. It caressed my cheek, and then vanished into the sky. But inside his arms, I felt myself slowly waking up from a dream. Maybe Eric didn't realize. At the very moment I looked up and saw him, all the fear, all the hesitation that had clung to me, melted away, gone, carried off with the wind, and I heard my own voice, soft but clear, I'm happy too, Eric. Let's break up." His arms froze. Chapter 10. He suddenly pulled away and grabbed my shoulders. Those dark eyes, rimmed with red and exhaustion, locking onto mine. "Elena? What are you saying? Are you still mad at me?" I stared straight into Eric's uneasy gaze. He lifted his hand to cup my cheek. His voice rushed and anxious. "I thought you getting first place meant the emotion had passed, that you'd moved on, that it didn't matter anymore. But I didn't expect." Eric suddenly gripped me tighter, his fingers digging into my shoulders, pain shooting through me as he pleaded, "Elena, believe me, from beginning to end, the only person I've ever liked is you. There's nothing between me and Victoria. No flirting. I never confessed anything. It's not what people are saying." I frowned. pulled away from his hands, took a few steps back before looking him in the eye. Fine, then tell me. What exactly is going on between you and Victoria? The hallway was nearly empty now. No more students lingering. Eric hesitated. Then finally, he closed his eyes and laid everything bare. Victoria was just someone I met at the hospital. My mom was hospitalized and needed a caretaker. My dad had to leave for something urgent, so he asked me to stay for the afternoon. At the time, my mom was asleep, and I thought she'd be fine, so I went outside the hospital to sketch. At that point, Eric lowered his head. His hands trembled as they clenched into fists, like he was reliving the terror. But because I left, because of my negligence, my mom almost died on the operating table. I stared at him in disbelief as he wiped at the corner of his eye. When he looked back up, his eyes were red, glassy, flooded with emotion. Victoria was the one who pressed the emergency button. She got my mom into surgery in time. Just a few seconds later, and I might have lost her forever. After that, I couldn't even pick up a pencil for a long time. Every night I'd dream of that moment, my mom dying because I chose to draw. And it was Victoria who comforted me. When everyone blamed me, she told me it was over, that I could start again. The man before me seemed trapped in his own hellish guilt, covering his eyes. He choked. I couldn't draw anyone else after that, because when I finally picked up a pencil again, all I could see was her. All I could draw was her. Her dancing in front of his grandmother's hospital bed to cheer her up. Her lifting that birthday crown with a glowing smile. All the memories from a time no one else knew about. Maybe not even Victoria realized that Eric had cast her in the role of his savior, his muse. No one forgets someone that important. That's why, when they reunited after so long apart, he looked at her like he was falling in love. That's why, when he found out about Victoria and Marco, he used my connection to get himself invited to the birthday party, to offer his blessings. That's why, when I broke down crying outside the KTV that night, Eric begged me not to make a scene, because the first thing he worried about was ruining her birthday. Chapter 11. Boom. In an instant it was like several heavy bells were slamming against my eardrums. Every sound around me turned hazy and muted. I stared in disbelief as Eric's tall figure crouched down in front of me, clumsily wiping at his tears. Eric. I don't. My choked words hadn't even finished when Victoria's voice suddenly appeared. Eric, Jr., the beautiful senior, her own eyes reddened, stood before us. Eric instantly stood up, glancing back at her. Victoria? What happened? Are you okay? The man's anxious run toward her was even faster than when he'd come to me. Victoria cast me one long look, bit her lip, and turned away. Eric wanted to follow, stopped, then looked back at me. Time stretched out endlessly. I knew my silence wasn't meant to keep him, but at that moment, maybe he thought it was. He furrowed his brow and called out, Elena, please believe me, wait for me. And then he immediately ran after the girl in the dazzling dress. The world went quiet again. Marco, who had been silently standing behind Victoria, his expression dark and brooding, finally walked over after a long pause. He reached out and gently touched my head. His voice was soft, tinged with regret and helplessness. Elena, don't cry. I wiped my tears with one hand, stubbornly turning my face away. My voice firm. It's okay. You know me. I've never worn a dance dress with flaws. That kind of thing, I just throw away. The trip to Edinburgh was arranged by the dance company. Aside from my professor, the only person at school I told about my departure date was Marco. Maybe he had class today. I waited until the last moment at the airport. He still didn't come to see me off. Go on. Don't wait anymore. Take care of yourself over there. Call your mom if anything happens. My mom kissed my face, her eyes a mix of pride and worry. There was also a trace of reluctant attachment. Elena, don't hate me. I have my selfishness, but I also want you to stand on a bigger, grander stage. Family love is always a complicated knot. I couldn't stand her strictness, the way she confiscated my phone whenever it was time to practice, like living under surveillance. Yet at the same time, I saw the hardship of her raising me alone, always running around for me. I couldn't truly resent her. I leaned forward and kissed her face back, hoping, Mom, if you have time, please come see me soon. Chapter 12. Life as an exchange student turned out to be even more hectic than I imagined. Aside from completing coursework at school, I also had to report to the dance company for regular training. After just 1 week of this back-and-forth routine, I realized that, outside of designated holidays, there was barely any time to rest. Marco called me almost every other day to ask how I was doing, what others might consider excessive. I somehow found completely natural. It was a hot August. Cicadas buzzed in waves. Inside the apartment, the air was cool and comfortable. I laughed softly. It wasn't until I came here to study that I realized we've barely spent any time apart before. Even at our busiest, we'd still run into each other in the cafeteria or outside my house. It was still daytime on his side. The campus buzzed with life. Marco laughed too, his voice rich and warm amid the noise. What? Suddenly not seeing me feels strange, doesn't it? Now you finally know how important I am. I shot back. Who said it's me feeling weird? Wasn't it someone else who called nonstop for half an hour just to make sure I'd answer? Definitely not me. Marco paused. Then his voice dropped. Softer. More serious. All right. Fine. It really is me who's not used to this. The day you left, I got caught up with something. I didn't get to see you off, and I've been wondering ever since. When you left this place, did you feel anything? Did you even hesitate? The last time I saw Marco was the day I broke up with Eric. We'd fought just before that. But it wasn't a big deal. Marco and I always had this silent agreement. We could argue today and be fine tomorrow. The AC was too strong. I couldn't help sneezing. That almost sounded romantic. But I can't go back. So why don't you come here? If you want to see me, come to me. I'm always here, waiting. If Marco really wanted to, he would have come already. But he had his own responsibilities, graduate school applications, pressure from professors, and his family already beginning to hand him company work. Just like me, his feet barely touched the ground each day. Now, as expected, Marco hesitated before saying, "Now there's just too much going on. I probably can't. A round trip would take 22 hours. By the time I see you, I'd already have to leave." He couldn't come. It was the answer I expected. But as I stared at the night outside my window, a faint ache bloomed in my chest. It had been months since I arrived here, and even my mom hadn't come to visit. Everyone had their own life. Everyone was busy. Back in high school, when my mom was away on long work trips, I used to stay over at Marco's house like it was second nature. But now, I spent so much time alone. I often practiced dance alone, completely disconnected from the world, until Eric entered my life during those quiet, lonely nights. It was his silent sketching across a video call that kept me company. I blew my nose, voice thick and muffled. I was just joking. Of course your studies are more important. Don't take what I said to heart. I have practice tomorrow. I'm going to bed. Hanging up now. Chapter 13. One day, I finished dance practice alone. I paused for a moment on the steps of the studio, admiring the stunning afterglow outside the arched window. The very next second, a familiar voice swept in with the warm breeze. "Elena." I turned around, and there Marco stood, not far from me. His features were sharp and defined, eyes gleaming with mischief, one hand stuffed into his pocket. He wore that typical young master air, laid back, cocky, effortlessly charming. A lazy smile tugged at his lips as he looked at me. I stood there, stunned, half suspecting it was a hallucination, until he stepped right up to me and flicked my forehead. "Staring at me like that? Hold yourself back, would you?" His teasing was obvious. I scowled at him. "What the hell? Didn't you say you weren't coming?" "Aw, what's this? Are you mad?" He shook the bag in his left hand, then glanced at the tissue I had crumpled in mine. "I noticed your voice sounded off 2 days ago. I knew you had a cold." He came all this way just because I had a cold? I looked at him suspiciously. Marco immediately pulled out a pack of tissues. "Your rhinitis always flares up when you catch a cold, right? Can't stop the runny nose. Remember back then when you didn't bring enough tissues and felt embarrassed in front of classmates? You cried all the way home." I took the small pack of tissues from him. Speechless, Marco crouched down and unzipped his backpack, launching into a monologue. "Brought you supplies. These here are travel-sized packs for your bag. box tissues for class, toilet rolls for the dorm. Oh, and here, cold medicine, allergy meds, bruise cream, pain patches, all stuff you've used before, so no worries about side effects. Just make sure you sort them properly and keep them somewhere easy to reach. The sunlight spilled onto his dark, soft hair, outlining a quiet gentleness. I blinked, dazed. You came all the way to Scotland just to bring me this? What? Can't I? Marco looked up, eyes shining beneath long lashes. I haven't forgotten how scared you are of getting embarrassed in front of others. I rushed this over overnight. Elena, tell me, aren't I good to you? Of course. Marco had always been good to me. Back when I'd cry from embarrassment after a rhinitis attack during a cold, he'd mock me for being dramatic, saying I had a princess complex. But then he'd silently stuff my school bag with tissues and meds, just so I wouldn't go through that again. Now, looking at the dark circles under his eyes, it was clear he'd been worn out lately. Yet just hearing I had a cold, he came all the way to Scotland. Something rose up in my chest, indescribable and overwhelming. My first instinct was to scold him. Why would you go this far? I'm not even short on money. I can take care of myself now. I'm not that clueless little girl anymore. Who would fly across countries just for something like this? Isn't that exhausting? Isn't that a bit too much? So many words clogged my throat. Marco tilted his head slightly, eyes clear and questioning. In the end, I couldn't say a single thing. Chapter 14. Marco was truly busy. He barely had time for one meal with me before he had to rush back. At the airport, he let out a nearly inaudible sigh. It's so hard just to see you once, and your mom had to send you so far away. I stayed silent and slipped a small gift into his hand. I'll be staying here even longer in the future. In that moment, I stared at Marco intently, as if I didn't realize the storm I had just unleashed with those words. Then I told him, Marco, you should start dating someone soon. Don't wait for me. In the distance, a plane roared into the sky, taking off. At the boarding gate, Marco suddenly froze in place, like time had stopped. It wasn't until someone nudged him forward that he finally moved. As he left, he looked back at me. His eyes were dark and intense, like a predator slowly emerging from the shadows, locking eyes with its prey, a gaze that promised possession, not possibility. Cold sweat slid down my back, and my heart pounded like thunder. It was as if I had suddenly realized what I'd just shattered. Even the slowest mind would have sensed it. Marco had brought more than a visit on this trip. He'd brought his feelings. And in that moment, I hadn't even had the chance to ask myself how I felt. I only knew, instinctively, this wasn't right. But why not? Why couldn't it be right? Me and Marco, was that really not possible? I tossed and turned, thinking it through over and over, until 2 weeks later, Marco suddenly flew back to Edinburgh again. He stood outside my school, tall, broad-shouldered, long-legged, a rare sight among Asian men. He drew plenty of attention. I stared at him, completely unprepared to face him. But Marco, calm and assured, walked straight toward me, lifted my backpack, and looked down. After I went back, I waited for you to reach out first. He looked even more exhausted than before, bloodshot eyes rimmed with weariness. His sharp, arresting gaze fixed on me, expression tense and voice deadly serious. Elena, do you not want anything to do with me anymore? You tore right through my defenses, and then gave me the cold shoulder, just because I like you? The air around us pulsed with heat, and my heart skipped a beat. How dare he say it out loud like that? Now what was I supposed to do? How could I possibly answer him without letting everything spiral out of control? I took a step back, my mind going completely blank, and stammered, Marco, calm down, don't say things like that. Chapter 15. So I'm crazy because I like you? Marco's voice rose, sharp with anger, his face cold and unreadable. Elena, you're the one who needs to calm down and stop dodging my questions. I know how hesitant you are, otherwise you wouldn't have played that little umbrella game with that guy for 3 years. But I just want to know, what did you mean by what you said that day? The more I stepped back, the closer Marco came. His aura, aggressive, overwhelming, closed the distance in an instant. Do you not like me at all? Then say it outright and reject me. Or do you just think we're in different countries now and it's not practical? But deep down you're not that against me either? I couldn't bring myself to meet the storm of passion churning in Marco's eyes. Instinctively, I just wanted to run, but the man grabbed my wrist firmly. Running again? He clenched his jaw, chest heaving, clearly furious. Right now I'm the one asking you, waiting for your answer. What are you so afraid of? Elena, what exactly are you afraid of? In an instant, I felt several curious gazes on us. I hated being looked at like a spectacle. I yanked my hand free with all my strength, my own temper finally snapping. Marco, are you insane? Can't you confess properly? Why do you have to drag and pull at me in public? I frowned, adding, and who says I'm afraid of you? Yeah, you're the one who likes me. Why should I be scared? Marco stared at me for a long beat. Then suddenly, his brows lifted, and he said, you're not afraid. Then be my girlfriend. What? I hadn't expected him to turn the conversation like that. What is that supposed to mean? You think you can get me without even trying? Marco shot back instantly. Fine. Then let me court you. I almost laughed out of sheer exasperation. For a moment, all my confusion and doubts scattered. I could only focus on provoking him. Don't be so sure of yourself. You really don't know how hard I am to win over. At that, a strange light flickered in the man's eyes. A chill ran down my spine, like I'd just walked straight into a trap. Marco narrowed his eyes lazily, his tone both dangerous and enticing. Elena, I've been preparing for this for a long time. You're welcome to try me. Chapter 16. I'd never seen anyone pursue someone the way Marco did. He was the first of his kind. That day, after confessing his feelings like a firecracker, he rushed back to China. After that, every day after class, there would be a large, eye-catching bouquet of roses waiting for me at the school gate. In less than 2 weeks, my apartment practically turned into a greenhouse, as the glorious sea of roses threatened to drown my room. I teased Marco over the phone. Marco, Mr. Big Shot, tell me, did you Google how to woo a girl and just pick the top search result? Roses? That's such an overused, cliché move from years ago. On the other end, Marco chuckled mischievously. Cliché? I wouldn't be so sure. See? It hasn't even been a full month. And you're the one calling me now. If I sent you rare exotic flowers every day, you'd be too busy guessing which plant was coming next. But now it's perfect. You're sitting there thinking about how dull and old school your annoying suitor is. And that means you're thinking of me every single day. So yeah, sometimes the classics work best. I didn't expect that to be his angle. Momentarily at a loss, I could only grumble in return. Well, I'm totally sick of roses now. You know, ever heard of too much of a good thing? Noted. He chuckled softly, as if genuinely trying to soothe me. Don't be mad, okay? I'll come up with something else. And from that day on, the roses stopped, but they were replaced by even more exotic and flamboyant blooms. Marco started calling me 3 or 4 times a day. Sometimes he'd call just to ask what I had for lunch or whether I ate properly, then hang up immediately. One day, he even woke me up from a nap. I picked up the phone in irritation, but he immediately pleaded pitifully. I flew all night. I'm starving. Be a good Elena and open the door and give me a bite to eat. Please? I sobered up instantly, rushing around to tidy up the clothes rack, desk, and everything messy. Then I finally opened the door. Outside, the man leaning against the frame looked perfectly sharp, energetic, and stylish. He eyed me and stifled a laugh. You made such a racket tidying up. Did you bump into the desk leg? Doesn't it hurt? We're so close. Why are you still trying to act like such a proper host? Chapter 17. Pack up your stuff and get out. I said it with a dark face. Naturally, Marco refused. He was so tall that he simply blocked the doorway with his long legs and squeezed himself inside. No way. I came all this way just to stay with you. Every time I have a break, I can't help but miss you like crazy. He dropped his luggage, glanced around my nearly empty living room, and frowned. Where are the flowers I sent you the other day? Sold them. Sold them? Why would you sell flowers? Are you short on money? coming out of the kitchen with bowls and chopsticks in hand. I gestured toward the window. On the lawn behind the apartment, groups of children were happily clutching flowers. Every kid who got one was beaming. It's the kids from the orphanage. They didn't have flowers. Today's Children's Day. 2 flowers for 1 song. They love it. Then something occurred to me and I curved my lips into a smile. I've been listening to their songs all morning. Came back for a quick break. And look, you just arrived. How about you help us watch the stall this afternoon? Marco froze, practically grinding the words out between his teeth. Elena, I came here to go on a date with you. You want me to fly 11 hours just to sell flowers? I bent over laughing, unable to stop myself. Outside, the sunlight was dazzling, and the flowers in the children's hands looked especially bright. Time with Marco always felt like this: banter, teasing, little arguments that dissolved quickly. In my memories, he was still the boy next door who used to hold my hand on the way to dance class and bounce around outside the window trying to sneak peeks at me practicing. One night, I looked up and saw heavy snow falling outside my window, and on the other side of the video call, the man with black hair falling over his brow sat seriously marking passages in a finance book with his long fingers. It hit me all at once: the person now keeping me company through every lonely night had already become Marco. As if throughout all these years, from childhood until now, we had always been there for each other, no gaps, no intrusions from anyone else. Chapter 18. Years slipped by in a flash. The day I became an official dancer and performed with the troupe in Paris. Marco sat in the very first row of the theater, dressed in an impeccable suit. Compared to the rest of the audience, who came in everyday clothes, he was certainly overdressed. But when I leapt under the spotlight in my luxurious blue silk dress and met Marco's amazed, love-filled gaze, I understood perfectly. This man couldn't care less about the curious stares from others. He only wanted to appear, in all his formality, as the most important person in my life, attending my first performance on a world stage. After the show, Marco came to give me flowers and then pointed behind him. Walking in from the door was my mother, equally solemn in her presence. Since I'd gone abroad, she'd hardly ever found time to see me. But when she hugged me, tears dripping into my collar as she said how proud she was, I trembled uncontrollably. Mom, everything you wanted me to do, I've done. She nodded through her tears, and suddenly I took Marco's broad hand and interlaced our fingers. Marco, for once, looked surprised. His beautiful eyes locked onto me under my mother's astonished gaze. I smiled, and also, Mom, let me officially introduce you. This is my boyfriend, Marco. Parisian neon lights flickered in the night. For the first time in ages, Marco and I had an evening together. After graduation, we were both busier than ever, often apart. That night Marco wore a constant smile, now and then glancing down at our interlocked hands. Elena, you really ambushed me. What do you mean? I smiled too, looking at his striking profile, breathtaking in the lamplight. How did I ambush you? He gave a mock-annoyed snort. If I hadn't happened to be dressed formally today, meeting my future mother-in-law would have been a disaster. My mom has always liked you. What are you afraid of? Being a childhood sweetheart isn't the same as being the boyfriend. What do you think I'm afraid of? Marco tilted his head toward me, his eyes full of bright love. My heart raced. I curved my lips, teasing him. What's different? You've just changed titles. We're still the same with each other. True. Marco suddenly turned plaintive. But what can I do? You know me so well you can even tell when I'm about to steal a kiss. It's been our first day officially together, and I still haven't kissed you. It's just like before. I shook our joined hands and laughed, thinking back to the day he stormed in to confess. He and this gentleman beside me seemed like 2 entirely different people. Do you want to kiss me? I stopped in my tracks. Marco didn't speak. He simply stood before me, looking down with narrowed eyes. The next instant, he lifted my chin and kissed me, just before our lips met. His burning breath brushed my cheek. Are you going to refuse? I tilted my head up to meet him, my voice full of feeling. I won't refuse. I want the stars. I hadn't expected the man to lose control because of this. I hadn't expected myself to go dizzy, to lose all reason. That night, far from home, our bodies tangled in aching tenderness. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Countless stars swayed and tumbled into my eyes. And there was one star, impossible to resist, whose mouth moved from my neck downward, breathing fast, exploring the deeper reaches of the universe. He forced me to call his name again and again. I refused. I begged. But his attitude was ruthlessly unyielding. He only took, recklessly, until at last I swallowed the star whole. Chapter 19. The year I prepared to marry Marco. I returned home and moved into his house. Sunlight flooded the living room in golden sheets. By chance, I pushed open the door opposite the master bedroom. The smell of paint instantly filled my nose. I stared at the studio in disbelief, hardly able to trust my eyes. Memories I thought were buried rose up in a rush. Every second I'd spent with Eric as a teenager had carried that same inescapable scent of paint. Eric had been a tireless painter. When I decided to leave back then, I'd done it cleanly, changed my phone number, shut down my social media, left nothing behind, running straight toward a future built on sweat and discipline. Busy, fulfilling days had almost made me forget those reckless years. I'd never known Marco had also fallen in love with painting, enough to build a studio at home. What are you thinking about? A pair of lean, strong arms wrapped around my waist. I stared blankly at the half-finished portrait on the easel. You painted this? When did you start liking painting? Marco rested his head in the hollow of my neck. His breath tickled my ear. Sophomore year of high school. He murmured, "Back then I said if you wanted a portrait, I'd paint you as many as you liked. You ignored me and just said I wasn't like that guy. You're so heartless, darling." I frowned, searching my memory, then realized, no, I didn't mean it that way at all. Well, that's how I understood it. Marco released me, walked further in, and pulled off a white cloth. Beneath it lay stacked portrait frames, each one of me. Me laughing in the sun with a trophy. Me dancing with my eyes closed. Me curled up on the steps, knees hugged tight in sadness. Even a still of me in snowy Edinburgh that had caught his gaze. The further back you looked, the more the trembling strokes showed. It was clear Marco had poured hours into drawing. Countless attempts, before his lines gained today's moving precision. You didn't draw all these just because I used to mind that Eric never painted me, did you? I asked in surprise. Marco tossed aside the cloth, a self-mocking smile tugging at his lips. Not only to comfort you. Once upon a time, a foolish boy saw the girl he liked sneaking off to watch another guy sketch, and thought maybe one of her conditions for liking someone was knowing how to draw. So he secretly enrolled in classes, studied behind her back, imagining that one day he'd be good enough to shock her, move her, and finally win her heart. The sourness in my chest tipped over. I bit my lip, stepping closer, not knowing what to say. Marco's lashes lowered. He bent down, slender pale fingers brushing the drawn face of my unhappiness. I always looked down on Eric. His voice deepened. But later what? I gripped his cold hand. He turned, lifted my wrist, and pressed a warm kiss to my bones. Elena, painting is really hard. The world spun. He scooped me up. Spring tides filled the bedroom. Back in my country, meeting old acquaintances was inevitable. I just hadn't expected it so soon. The very next day at the bridal shop I ran into Victoria. Her long skirt swayed as she clung to the arm of an unfamiliar man, smiling brightly. When she saw Marco and me, she clearly froze. I had no wish to reminisce, but she called out, "Elena, you're back. Can we talk? Just the two of us." Chapter 20. Victoria was as stunning as ever. Just sitting in the cafe was enough to draw stares. "Senior, what did you want to talk about?" "You're still calling me senior? Then I guess you really don't hold a grudge over the past." She let out a sigh. "I didn't expect you to leave so decisively back then. No one at school even knew when you were leaving, let alone how to contact you." She paused. Marco must have known, but Eric kept pressuring him, trying to find a way to see you. He never gave in. I had no idea the two of you were so close. There was a faint accusation in her tone, and to be fair, I had lied to Victoria first. After a moment's thought, I replied, "I hid it for a reason, but it was never to hurt you. I'm sorry." Victoria looked startled, then shook her head with a smile. "You and Marco really are different. Back then, I let jealousy and shame get the better of me. I asked him the same thing. He just coldly told me, whatever happens between you two is none of anyone else's business. Besides, he never saw me any different than the sea of girls chasing after him. She lowered her gaze. Do you know how painful that was? I've always been proud, admired. No one had ever looked down on me like that. He made me feel so pathetic, so I wanted him to know what it's like to be thrown away like he didn't matter. That's why I went to find Eric that day. Eric had always seen me as the person who saved his mother. He once swore that no matter what, if I ever needed him, he'd come to me. I never really used that until that day. In front of Marco. I pulled Eric away from you. That was the first time, and it was also the last. It hit me like a flash of lightning. I suddenly recalled how Marco's expression had held deep frustration when he came to comfort me that day. At the time, I thought he was just regretting provoking Eric into confessing, but now I realized he probably never imagined Eric would so easily abandon me with just one word from Victoria. I nodded slowly. I understand now. Is there anything else you wanted to say? Maybe my calm response threw her off. Victoria studied me for a moment, then shook her head. No, just one last thing, I'm sorry. I apologize for the malice I showed you back then. If I wanted revenge, I should have taken it out on Marco. Besides, when you fall for someone who never gave you a clear answer, you should be prepared to get hurt. After you vanished from the country like you'd evaporated into thin air, Eric went crazy trying to find you. He even skipped classes, nearly missed graduation. That was when I truly regretted it all. I shouldn't have done that to you, and I ruined your relationship with him. Elena, I'm so sorry. I hope you can forgive me. Her fingers shifted slightly, and her wedding ring shimmered in the sunlight. Honestly, Victoria could have said nothing and just moved on, started a happy life. But on such an important day, trying on wedding dresses, she saw me and still chose to apologize. I hesitated a moment, then gently took her hand and smiled. It's okay, I'm over it. You should forget the past too. Congratulations on your wedding, bride-to-be. As we went our separate ways, I realized Marco was chatting casually on the street with Victoria's husband. When Marco came back, he was clearly smug. Getting along well with someone else's husband? I asked. Skeptical. Marco squinted at me, smirking wickedly. Do you know who he is? He's the organizer of the city art exhibition. I asked him for a favor, got a surprise for you. Later I found out the gift was more like something Marco gave himself. He secretly entered a painting he'd been working on behind my back into the city's art competition. On the day of the judging, using the excuse of giving me a wedding gift, he dragged me to the venue. I sat with him in the contestants section. The panel of judges entered, all smiles, and then, after all these years, Eric stood directly in front of me. Chapter 21. He looked as dazzling as ever, but the smile on his refined face froze the instant his eyes met mine. Shock, disbelief, and a rush of joy flickered through his gaze, until Marco, propping his chin on his hand, leaned against my shoulder, waved enthusiastically, and called out, Professor Eric, I've admired you for so long. Painting after painting was evaluated until the microphone called Marco's name. He seized my hand and strode to the center of the hall like a natural-born guest of honor. He introduced the piece, a romantic, double-figure painting of a couple embracing, symbolizing beauty and hope, as his wedding gift to me. Under everyone's burning gaze, I held my smile at the center of the stage. A moment later, thunderous applause erupted. Then Marco turned me around, his palm pressing against my waist with a grip like a lock. On the judges' panel, Eric's dark eyes trembled. His hand, clutching the microphone, was taut and shaking. Marco, seemingly oblivious, smiled lightly and said, So, that's the meaning of this painting. I wanted to make it a milestone and dedicate it to my beloved wife. And today, whatever the competition result, I invite all the judges to witness our love. Under the lights, Eric's face turned ashen, as if anger were about to burst through his self-control. Marco's superior gaze, half-smile playing at his lips, fell on him softly. Tomorrow at noon, Professor Eric, will you come to our wedding? Eric's eyes shifted away from me. After a long pause, he said, Unfortunately, I have work tomorrow. I'll offer my congratulations here. The rest of his words seemed to choke him. Even the other judges glanced at him with confusion. The veins on his hand stood out as he gripped the microphone. Drawing a deep breath. I wish you both 100 years of harmony and a life free from worry. Then he slammed the microphone down, making a harsh sound. Everyone stared at the stiff figure of the man. He lowered his head and said to an older colleague, "Sir, this lady is an old acquaintance of mine. For the sake of fairness, I request to step down and have someone else take my place." The elder nodded, and Eric quickly left the venue. That retreating back looked so much like the day he left me long ago, except now it carried the air of someone unable to bear his own defeat. After the exhibition, we prepared to leave. Marco chattered proudly about how his painting had made the top 8. A young man in worn canvas shoes suddenly approached me and handed me a rolled-up painting. Puzzled, I unrolled it, and there I was, dancing in the Paris theater, snow settling on my hair as I spun gracefully. Inside the roll was a note, written in a hand both strange and familiar. Elena. I realized too late that the palest thing isn't words, it's waiting. That year, I tossed off one line asking you to wait for me, then let go and left. In the barren years that followed, the one who waited could never see you return. I came from a poor family. It took me years to save up for travel and tickets abroad. But I was lucky, I made it to your first performance. You were beautiful, shining from the farthest place away from me. Later, I painted this. Maybe now it's worth not even a fraction of Marco's wedding gift to you. But at least it could sell for a decent price. Is your troupe's next tour starting in Beijing? In the smoggy weather, remember to bring your medicine. And also, I love you. I'm sorry. Chapter 22. The wind swept across the sky, and the paper rustled softly. Marco stood beside me with a cold expression, his eyes fixed tightly on me. I lowered my gaze, tore the note into pieces, rolled the painting back up, and handed it to the young man. Thank you for coming all this way. You don't need to return this painting to your teacher. Sell it in my name, and keep the money for yourself. The young man froze, then shook his head quickly. No, I can't. My teacher is the one who's been sponsoring me. How could I? I tilted my head and gave him a small smile. Your teacher will agree. You can tell him if you like. And besides, my lover once told me that painting is hard. Take this as a reward for making it this far. Your teacher is an incredibly diligent and talented man. I hope one day you'll be the same. I still remembered. Back in sophomore year, even while Eric was struggling to survive and study, he still made time to tutor poorer underclassmen for free. Time rushes forward, and everything changes. But at least, stripped of the veil of romance, I had not misjudged him as a person. The bedside lamp glowed dimly. The snowman music box I'd bought on the streets of Edinburgh years ago was still carefully kept at my bedside. Marco's lips trailed across my ear, my mouth, my neck. In his eyes seemed to glitter 1,000 shifting lights, brilliant and unpredictable. What did you call me today? In front of that student? His advance didn't stop, yet his tone was soft and entwined. I lifted my head, sank into his gaze, and smiled radiantly. Star, my love, I love you so much.